Hi, I love this question. What about stay-at-home moms other than gardening, canning, and not buying extras? How can we strike? There are lots of us who are not going to be walking off the job in a general strike, maybe because our work is not tied to a paycheck. We can still engage in that work. Mutual aid is a significant component. Community care is necessary in order for a general strike to be maintained. Ahead of a strike, it's fundraising to make sure that there is a strike fund to pay strikers while they are out. Some of the women in my comments were like, oh, we couldn't do a women's strike because we're all too poor for that. One woman said that she lives paycheck to paycheck and so can't afford to take off work. That's the construct of a capitalist system, y'all. They want you to feel that you are stuck and there is nothing that you can do. They want you to feel like you're all alone, right? I think somebody in my comments said, it's hard for us in the United States to pull off a strike because we really don't know how to operate within a village. We don't know how to take care of each other during situations of adversity. We are very much independent in our society. We have a lot of toxic individualism, and so we often forget what it's like to lean on each other, to support each other, to experience the reality of caring for other people and being cared for by other people. It's foreign for so many people in the US, but it's really necessary for us to be able to pull off a strike. I would love to know what other people think. What are the ways that if you are not somebody who currently earns a paycheck, or maybe you have a job where you can continue to work in a situation where there's a general strike, and obviously we could talk about what kind of vocation that may be, then what do you think would be the best way that you could lend your skills and your ability and your resources to support people who are potentially calling out of work for long periods of time, in order to withhold their labor from the economy and in order to pressure all of the pillars of support underneath the Trump regime to no longer comply? And to all the people in my comments who are like, I'm too poor, most of America is too poor in order to pull off a strike. You want to know what Poland looked like in the 1980s? Most countries that have successfully pulled off worker strikes. I mean, look at the labor unions in the United States. Look at the history of our labor movement. What kind of lives do you think our workers were living when they didn't have an 8-hour workday, when they didn't have a 5-day work week, when they were being worked to the bone? And they organized and they created strike funds and they made sure that they were willing to take on those sacrifices for the greater gain of workers' rights, of having a better quality of life down the road. I know that people don't necessarily want to hear it, and I don't mean to be glib. I'm just trying to be pragmatic. A general strike will get the job done, combined with all of the other ways that we are already fighting and pushing back. I feel like putting all of our eggs in the basket of the midterms is not a great situation. That is not all we need to be doing. We need the big heavy lifts now. We need the big actions that are going to be able to leverage the system to our advantage. We're going to have to exercise our power, but we have to sacrifice in order to be able to do that. And I think this may be just a way that my brain works. It may be my permaculture outlook, but I am very much somebody who says, I'm at point A, I need to get to point B. It's non-optional. This is happening. I've likened it before to like being in labor. You can't turn it off. It is a thing that you are now going through, and you can either work with what your body is doing to help make it easier to facilitate the birth of your child, or you can fight it. But it is something that is happening to you no matter what. And there are things you can do to ease that process, to make that process go more smoothly. There are ways that you can empower yourself, that you can not be a passive participant in the birth of your own child and what your body is going through. Like all of that does not negate the fact that that is something that you're going to have to go through. So we want to get from point A to point B. That's non-negotiable. What can we do to make that process go better and reduce our own suffering along the way? What can we do before we enter into this process, right? We're like at point pre-A, right? We're getting ready to step up to the plate. What do we need to do to prepare in advance so that this journey goes more smoothly? I think if we look at it as an inevitability, if we have some radical acceptance of like, this is what I said in the first video, if we have some radical acceptance of like, we're going to have to struggle, we're going to have to make sacrifices, it's going to be real rough. But you know what's worse? You know what's worse? Fascism. You know where we're going to struggle harder? You know where things are going to be a lot worse than they are now? Under fascism. Somebody said in the comments to me, like, you're safe, but I'm not safe. One, I'm not safe. My kids are not safe. But none of us are safe under a fascist regime. That's what I'm trying to explain. None of us are safe. We have to risk it for a biscuit. We have to step out and take a risk. We have to be willing to make sacrifices now for our own future, for our children's future, for our own lives. It is going to get worse the more Donald Trump and the fascists consolidate their power and the more they erode our rights. We have not even begun to see how bad it will get if we don't stand up. But we, the people, have all of the power. We have all of the power. We have been told by the system that we don't. We've been told not to acknowledge our power, not to think about it, and definitely not to organize and execute it. They don't want us to come together, aggregate our power, and carry out the actions that will stop them. That's why they're trying so hard to convince you that it can't be done. They're trying so hard to convince you that you are powerless, that you are alone, and that you definitely cannot stand up to them. That's intentional because they're really fucking afraid of you. They're afraid of you and me. They're afraid of us standing up with our neighbors. They're afraid of all of us linking arms and holding the line. They're afraid of all of us coming together and exercising our power to stop them because they know that we can do it. The only things they have to stand against us are threats and intimidation and discouragement. They want to demoralize you. They're lying to you. They're telling you that you have no power here. They're telling you to distrust your neighbor. They're telling you the community is worthless. They're telling you your contribution is worthless because they have only got their powers of demoralization and intimidation, and that's it. When we, the people, stand up and organize and use our collective power, the fascists cannot stand. When we, the people, organize, there's nothing they can do to stop us. So they have to start at the beginning and prevent us from ever taking that first step on that journey, right? They want to stop you from believing that that journey is even possible. And instead, we need to be saying, this journey is inevitable. It's happening. It's fucking happening. They say that it can't happen. They say we shouldn't even bother to start. No, it's happening. So now I just need to figure out how to get from point A to point B. That's the process we need to be in now. The organizing, the strategy, how do we support each other so people can step out of work? How do we support each other so that when we all withdraw our labor from the economy, we grind everything to a halt, that we all take care of each other, that people get their needs met, and the fascist regime goes like that.